Coming through. Alon?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, because we are at home having a hard time hearing you. So just give me a sign when you're ready. Because
We're ready.
you're ready. Okay, cool. And can you see it properly? Like if I share my screen, you will see what I'm presenting as well?
Yes.
Cool. Great. So let's start. Nice to meet everyone, and thank you for having me here. I'm Alon. I'm married plus 4. A couple of months ago, I moved from Israel to Teaneck, New Jersey. So now I'm pretty close by to you. Today I'm the CEO and co-founder of Point 5. That's a tech startup developing a platform for cloud cost optimization. And actually, I moved here as part of our process to grow globally and start building our sales and marketing here in the US. Maybe later on we'll discuss on why I'm doing it a bit more thoroughly. But this specific talk today is part of the tour I'm doing around the book I wrote and was just published in English a couple of months ago called The Battle for Your Computer. The book is about the Israeli cybersecurity industry, what makes it so successful and a global leader when it comes to cybersecurity. I can tell you that when we published the book in English and we planned the tour of giving the talks all around the US, it was really going to be a celebration of Israeli innovation, Israeli technology, the amazing impact that we do on the world and every person around the globe. And then like 1 week before it was all supposed to start, so October 7th happened, came upon us. And it was a real tragedy, obviously. I canceled all the talks I had until then. I mean, I couldn't think of even about, talking about like Israel innovation and technology when something so horrible happened. But I actually went through a very interesting process that made me understand that probably one of the most important things I can do right now is to talk about this book and to talk as much as possible on every stage. And just to give you an idea of what I've been through personally in the past month as a tech founder and manager. So as you can guess, once like October 7th happened, it was real like tragedy for everyone in Israel. I was here, so obviously I had no idea what's happening until the Shabbat and the Chag went out. And when I realized the horrible things that have happened, I just had to meet my team. I woke up like at 3 a.m. the same night and met my team when it was 10 a.m. in Israel. I had no idea what to say. I had no words. People were like joining the Zoom, faces falling, and you could really feel the sadness. And it was really about like containing the people, giving them space for the feelings, but that's what it's all about. But I think that very quickly, what we realized is that, we cannot, stay in this sadness or anger or shock that we're at. Refreshing your newsfeed every few minutes, doesn't do good to anyone, not to our country, not to ourselves. And at some point, we realized that the best thing we can do, at least those of us who are not on reserve duty, is to actually continue and build our product, build our company, and really support Israeli economy from the long run, and this is the best thing we can do. We felt that this is the way to, take our, feelings to a very good place. But more importantly, in many ways, this is our answer to our enemies. They came to kill us. We're here to bring, more life. They came to destroy. We are here to build. They came to break our spirit. And we're here motivated than ever to build the best Israel we can imagine. And at this point, we just, went on track with our roadmaps, work plans, and kept on building our company more motivated than ever. And the same thing happened to me with my book. At some point I realized eventually Israel will prevail. Israel will continue to be a lighthouse for innovation, for technology. And, this is the time to talk about Israel, what it's done for humanity, what it will keep on doing in the future. And this is the best, way to present Israel to the world, especially when our enemies act very differently, let's put it this way. So I decided to continue with the tour of the book. And the book, like I said, is about Israeli cybersecurity, what makes it so powerful, what makes it so successful. And it's not going to be the regular or the original talk I planned. I'm going to talk also the aspect related to the current situation, current war. And I hope that you will see how Israel's challenges and opportunities, are tightly coupled. Like the same characteristics that makes Israel so successful is also what makes the lives in Israel and like building the state of Israel so challenging. So I would like to kick a start. If you have questions, raise your hand. I'm open to accept questions as we go. So let me share my screen. Can you see my presentation? Yes. Great. Okay, so let's start with my story. So 2 years ago, I sold my startup. The name of the startup was Insights. It was a cybersecurity startup to an American cybersecurity company, pretty big one, called the Rapid7 for over $300 million. For me personally, it was obviously a huge achievement. But every time I think about it, I find it very funny how people perceive this situation, this event, versus how I experienced it. So I think when people, thinking or imagining selling your company for hundreds of billions of dollars, this is more or less what they imagine. Everyone happy, smiling, celebrating, drinking, partying, etc. But this is actually a staged photo that was taken like a few weeks after the event actually happened. And what better represents my personal experience, I guess, is this photo. This is more or less where I was at a few minutes after I signed the agreement to sell my company. So I signed the agreement and went on the train on my way home. It was actually pretty funny because as I was driving on the train, I got a phone call for a friend of mine. He was like, "Hey, Alon, how are you?" And I'm like, "I'm doing great. I just sold my company for over $300 million. And he was like, "What? What? When did it happen? Where are you?" And I was like, "Hey, I'm on the train on my way home." "Train? What are you doing on the train? Take a helicopter, take a Lamborghini. What's wrong with you?" And he was like, "Okay, but what do you do tonight? Are you partying? What are your plans?" I told him, "I don't know. My plan are basically to wash dishes at home and then go to sleep, I guess." And he was like, What's wrong with you?" And it was a really funny situation, but the situation really represent how I felt. So many people might imagine that you feel excitement, fulfillment in that moment of signing the agreement, but in reality, I felt kind of emptiness, kind of a big hole inside me. So if until then, my startup, my company, my employees filled my days and nights, and what gave me purpose, in many ways, when I signed this agreement, all this went away. And this is was my general feeling. And it went with me, for a few days, until I decided to make two decisions. The first one was to donate money to all the educational institutions that I went through: elementary school, high school, university, yeshivas. Actually, my first phone call was to my principal in high school. His name was Alon. And this is more or less how he remembers me. So I called him and I told him, "Hey, Alon, remember me? It's Alon. I'm the one that made you all the trouble a few years ago. Guess what? I sold my company and I want to donate some money to the school." He was really excited, and it led to amazing collaboration with the school. And the second decision I made was to write this book. So this is me writing the book, by the way. And I think that in many ways, like the startup, 6 years of building startup and building the product and the company and employees and customers and all around it, that was non-stop effort, day to night, 24/6. That's what it's all about. And I don't know if you know this feeling when you have a really, really intense and stressful period in life, and suddenly it comes to an end, and your mind opens up, and you can start to reflect of what you've been through and learn from that for the future. And in many ways, that were my life for 6 years. For 6 years, I was stressful, intense work, day and night. And suddenly, in one day, it all disappeared in a way, and I had time to reflect. And my conclusion was that my ability to reach this amazing milestone, obviously, of selling our company for a huge amount of money, was really thanks to the ecosystem that was built in Israel. So yeah, I worked very hard, and I had an amazing team around me, and I also had a lot of luck and hashgacha from above. But a lot of it was really thanks to the ecosystem in Israel, the investors, the entrepreneurs that gave me advice, the amazing aggregated experience when it comes to cybersecurity. And in many ways, I felt like Newton said that what he has achieved is thanks to the fact he was standing on shoulders of giants. So this is exactly what I felt. A lot of it is thanks to many people who built this industry for many years. And my way to thank them is to tell their story to the world, to tell the amazing story of Israeli entrepreneurs building an amazing cybersecurity industry that leads the world when it comes to cybersecurity and has impact on every person worldwide, and his personal security as he uses his computer or as his phone. So I decided to go on a journey and to do research about the Israeli cybersecurity industry and what made it so successful. And I can also tell you, as a tech person, I always try to do anything driven by data. Look at the numbers, what the numbers tell me. And I always felt that Israel is very special. There is obviously a lot of Israeli cybersecurity startups. Obviously, there is good reputation to Israel when it comes to cybersecurity. But I was really curious to see what story the numbers tell. And obviously, if you think about Israel, so Israel is extremely small country. It's 0.2% of the US territory. So it's extremely small when it comes to territory. And it's also extremely small when it comes to its population. So it's only 0.12% of the world population. That's the population of Israel. But when you look at the number of Israel and its performance in the cybersecurity world, it completely flips. So just to give you a few interesting data points, 10% of the world cybersecurity companies are Israeli. 10%. Okay, that's like 50 times more than its relative population size in the population. 25 companies per million people, #1 in the world. By the way, do you know who's the next one? Next one is Singapore with 4.8 companies per million people. So usually it's a huge, huge, huge advantage. 25% of cybersecurity unicorns, companies valued over $1 billion, are Israeli. 90% of public companies valued over $1 billion are Israeli or were founded by Israelis. 16% of companies, startups acquired are Israeli. So the numbers are absolutely insane. Like Israel has amazing leadership when it comes to cybersecurity. And these numbers really struck me. I knew that Israel is special, but I didn't know how much, and that it has such an amazing dominance. And the next thing was to really ask the question, okay, how did it happen? How it happened that such a small country with so little people is reaching such amazing achievements when it's come to tech and to cybersecurity. And I start with trying to reflect on my own journey. And I asked myself, okay, where my personal journey began, it was actually in my military service, I need 200. Guess this is where it all began. So at high school, I hated computer science. I didn't want anything to do with that. My principal literally tried to convince me, Alon, go to computer science. It will be an amazing fit for you. But I just didn't really want to do anything with computer science. And also when I reached my senior year in high school, and we started all the placement exams for the IDF, I didn't want to go to intelligence. Actually, my dad, he tried to go to Alon, you should go to 8200. That will be amazing fit for you, for your skills, for your talent. You'll get amazing experience when it comes to technology. But I did what I did every time my dad told me to do something, and that is doing the opposite. So if my dad told me, okay, you should go to intelligence 8200, so for me it means, okay, go to infantry, go to be a combat warrior. And I decided to drop all the placement exams, and I went to infantry, to a special commando unit. But I guess God had different plans for me. Fairly quickly after I started training, I hurt my earring during shooting training. And then I was announced that I cannot continue my infantry training. I cannot continue, to become what I wanted to be, a combat warrior. And at that point, I really remember like this moment that I came back to my team, and like my commander told me, Alon, go climb this rope, and I was trying to climb it, and I just couldn't. Like I was out of energy, I was out of motivation. Like physically, I couldn't climb the rope. I burst in tears. Went into my room. I didn't want to see anyone. But I guess a few days later, I realized that I have to pull myself together and do something. And I still have almost 3 years ahead of me of military service. So I better make a good use of this time. And after a long process, I was able to move to 8200, like my dad originally had planned for me. And when I reached 8200, it was amazing because I was still in the IDF. I was still with the green uniform. Like from outside, it all looked the same. But I reached to a completely different military. So when I was an infantry, and this is, by the way, this is my team from my special commando unit. So, but when I was an infantry, it was about endurance, it was about discipline, it was about physical strength. This is what we discussed and talked about and trained around all the time. When I got to 8200, suddenly it was, and this is me at 8200, by the way, suddenly it was all about innovation and critical thinking and taking initiative and thinking outside of the box. So it was a completely different experience. And 8200 is like this place where you can sit for lunch, and it looks like like a regular military place where you eat lunch. You can imagine how lunch looks like. But when you sit with your friend, you can talk about startups and ideas for startups you have, and what type of startup you will do when you finish your military service. And it was also a feeling that I'm surrounded with amazing people, extremely talented people, very, very smart, probably the highest concentration of intelligence I've ever been or ever experienced. So this is a really, really special place from that perspective. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, so 8200 was originally founded as a unit that is supposed to intercept radio signals from the air and figure out the communication of the enemy, like tactical communication in the battlefield. Later on, at some point, 8200 realized that the most important, interesting intelligence is actually on people's phones as computers. So as the internet evolved and people were starting to use email and started to use Zoom and voice over internet and started to save all their data on computers in Word and Excel files, so 8200 realized that the intelligence is really there and kind of pivoted and focused mainly on the cybersecurity aspects and actually getting the intelligence from the enemy's phones and computers. And our task, as 8200 soldiers, we were like 18, 19 years old, but our task was to get into the phones, computers of our enemies and bring the intelligence from there. So actually, 8200 was a place for me to fall in love with tech, get background about cybersecurity, and also meet amazing people that actually one of them became my co-founder in the 2 startups that I built. So for me, this is where it all began. And when I asked people in the industry, hey, what makes Israel so successful when it comes to cybersecurity? Everyone said 8200, the technological unit in the IDF. But I felt that this is not a good enough answer. Excuse me, but US have NSA, UK has GCHQ, amazing units that deal with cybersecurity and doing amazing stuff just as good as 8200. Why Israel is so successful? Why are the numbers when it comes to Israel so different than the numbers in the UK and the number in the US? And no one could even give me a good answer until I met 8200 commander at my time, Nadav Zafir, and he told me the secret formula, the secret sauce. What is so special about Israel when it comes to the military cybersecurity experience? And this is the formula he shared with me. Okay? The first step is the fact that 8200 can pick and choose the best and the best. So because we have a mandatory military service, 8200 has the privilege to choose the most talented and the most relevant people for cybersecurity activities. Here in the US, for example, many talented people go to college, go to finance, go to tech. Not all of them go to NSA. In Israel, the best of the best go directly to 8200 and similar units. Then you have a short service of 3 to 6 years. So in the NSA, for example, in the NSA, for example, you go there to build your career for the long term. In Israel, you do 3 to 6 years. And after that period of time, most of the people go outside to the private sector. What you do after you have like 3 to 6 years of crazy cybersecurity experience, you met the most talented people when it comes to the tech industry. What do you do when you go out? You obviously go and build a private cybersecurity industry. So actually this process, like in the end of it, sends a lot of people with relevant experience directly to the private cybersecurity industry and build it, and build new companies and strengthen existing companies. And this is what basically build an amazing cybersecurity ecosystem in Israel. Also, something you need to understand, the experience in 8200 is nothing like any other place. So on the private sector, you are still, have to abide laws. When it comes to like military experience, you don't have to abide to any laws. So except for example, not putting surveillance on your own citizens, you more or less can do whatever you want. You have amazing tools and you have no limitations. So you get amazing experience that you cannot get anyplace else. and the best of the best get this experience and go out to the private industry and build an amazing private cybersecurity industry. Now, I was also, this answer really like, I was able to accept, but I still had another question for Nadav. He was again my 82 commander in 8200, and I asked him if like 8200 is happy with that, because basically these people go out, build amazing companies, and they do it instead of staying in the 8200. So aren't you concerned that people are leaving instead of staying because there is an amazing private sector? And his answer was absolutely no. And I was like, what? How do you explain it? And then he explained me the rest of the process. Once you build an amazing private industry, so there is a huge positive impact on the economy with taxes, with money that can then strengthen 8200 and give her bigger budgets. On top of that, people see that 8200 alumni go out and build amazing companies and do amazing things, and then they want to send their kids to 8200 as well. Just like my dad pushed me to 8200, many other parents, as they see the success of people coming out of 8200, they want to push their kids to 8200, and that creates higher motivation and bigger soldiers coming eventually to these units. So this is actually a circle that feeds itself, and 8200 becomes stronger, and Israeli private industry becomes stronger as well. Now, I talk a lot about 8200. I think that these days, it's also very important to talk about 8200 failures. After the October 7th, I'm honestly not sure how it was like in America or for you, but I can tell you, at least for Israelis, for 3-4 days, we just kept on asking, where was the intelligence? Where was the intelligence? How come we didn't know about it? We have such amazing technologies. We have 8200. We're the most invested in the world. How did it happen? How did it happen? This is what people ask nonstop. And I think that it's very important to understand two things. So obviously there will be an investigation to get to the bottom of that, and lessons will be learned, that's for sure. But I think two things. One, collecting the intelligence is not enough. There's always a process of interpreting it. So you would never get like, hey, tomorrow at 6 a.m. in the morning, 1,000 Hamas terrorists are going to go to Israel and do X, Y, Z. You'll never get such an amazing information. You will have bits and pieces, and you have to build the puzzle and interpret it. And in reality, no one imagined that something like that, or at least in that scale, can happen. So there was intelligence that something is going to happen, but no one was prepared to something of such a huge scale that would happen. So in many ways, the assumptions of the interpretation of the intelligence were lacking as well. On top of that, I think that in many ways, Israel's problem was that its intelligence became too good. And what do I mean by too good? It means that we were able to provide such amazing intelligence over the years and prevent so many terror attacks that we started trusting intelligence too much. We did not understand its limitations. We did not understand that our enemy is also adapting and learn how to dodge us monitoring him. In many ways, we relied too much on intelligence instead of having boots on the ground. And the tragedy that we all experience is actually due to the fact that Israel built such an amazing ecosystem of cybersecurity with the intelligence corps in the IDF and the private sector together that are feeding each other. So that's a few observations about the intelligence failure, about what happened on October 7th. Also, something that is very interesting, and I learned from the research about the book. This is me, by the way, when I was like on 3rd or 4th grade, something like that. I really like to play chess. And I think that in many ways, the story of Israel is a story of how you build dreams for kids and how dreams build reality and help humanity reach amazing achievements. This is what it's all about. I met with one of Israel's leading entrepreneurs. His name is Amichai Schulman. He founded Imperva, very big company. I asked him, Amichai, how do you explain Israel's success? And he said, Alon, think about it. In Israel, the only thing you can do is tech entrepreneurship. And what did he mean by that? He meant to say that if you're a kid, person, dreaming to do something big, your options in Israel are very limited. We're a very small country. In the US, you can build a huge finance, retail, manufacturing business because it's a huge country. It's the same laws and it's the same place for 300 million people. So you can build huge things in these industries that usually has a very, very big advantage for the local player. In Israel, we have a very small market, so we cannot build something very, very big in Israel in these industries. We don't have much natural resources, like until recently we didn't have the gas, but we don't have any other natural resources like metals or things like that, or oil. We just don't have it. So if you want to do something big, your almost only option is to build a tech company, because a tech company developed a software that can be replicated in a split of a second to any place in the world, and you can sell your software anywhere without even going there. So tech entrepreneurship is the only way to build something really, really big in large scale. And this is one of the reasons that Israel, or the dreams of kids in Israel, is to become a tech entrepreneur. This is probably one of the most common dreams. And sorry. And this is why, as I grew up as a kid in Israel, I heard my dad, who worked in tech, I heard him talk about Checkpoint and cybersecurity companies that was built and how amazing they are. And when I opened the newspaper, what was always celebrated is Israel is building amazing tech companies or selling big tech companies. And this is how, as a kid in Israel, you build your dreams. And Israel's success in many ways about developing this dream of tech entrepreneurship and cybersecurity is actually one example of it. I can also tell you that dreams and what kids aspire to become, in many ways, is really disturbing us in Israel, today, because we're all having discussions about what will be the day after Hamas will be annihilated. Okay, what's going to happen next? Okay, I know you got rid of all Hamas. They don't have any ammunition anymore. They don't have any weapon. But what now? Because the kids in Gaza are still dreaming on destroying Israel from the river to the sea. So let's assume, you annihilate Hamas. What happens now? And this is really comes from the place that us Israelis, we understand that what defined our future is the dreams of our kids. And what will define the future in Gaza, for example, of our enemies, is the dreams of their kids. And this is why, for us, it's a huge topic. What's going to happen the day after? How we make sure that, the kids of our enemies are dreaming to do good in the world, are dreaming to have peace, to have good neighbor relationship. And that's because our dream is what built us as an amazing country, and what made us eventually a lighthouse for cybersecurity technology and innovation. Now, for the book, I also interviewed a lot of people. One of them was Gil Shwed. Gil Shwed, he's like the Bill Gates for Israel in cybersecurity. Like, he built Checkpoint, the mothership of all cybersecurity companies in Israel. He was one of the first entrepreneurs that became very successful in the early days. And I had to ask him, Gil, what made the Checkpoint so successful? And his answer was extremely, extremely interesting. And he was like, what made us so successful is the fact that we are very far from our customers. The fact that we sell mainly to the American industry, and then globally, because Israel is so small, that's what makes us so successful. And I was like confused. What do you mean by that? How come? Like I moved to the US to be closer to our customer. How come you said that actually being far from your customers is what made you so successful? And his answer was fascinating because he told me that the fact that we're far from our customers is what makes us build an amazing products that are very easy to use. So because we were so far away, we at Checkpoint had to build products that are easy to install, easy to understand, easy to deploy, easy to operate. Because if we hadn't done that, we had no, way to exist. We would have just disappeared. So in a way, our limitation as Israelis, we are far away from the US market, operate in a very small market. This has became our advantage. And when I asked also investors in the industry, how do you see the difference between like Israeli entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs? And the most important difference that they pointed out is the fact that Israeli entrepreneurs think globally and think big from day one. So compared to European entrepreneurs, they usually start with their local market, have a success there. For example, they're from Germany, they start from Germany, and then it goes well, they go to Italy, to UK, to Switzerland, etc. And this is how they build their companies. Easily from day one, you go to the US. This is the biggest market. This is where we start. We also think globally and operate globally from day one. For example, today at at Point 5, we're 100% Israelis. Everyone speaks Hebrew as their native language. And still, all the internal communications are in English. Even when we chat with each other, it's in English. Why? Because we know we're building a global company from day one. And this is the mindset. And this mindset of thinking big, thinking global from day one, it's all thanks to the fact that we're a small country and there is no justification to target Israel as the main market for you. So we target the US. And because of that, we think globally and we have the mindset of building something really big from day one. And this is what makes, Israel from that perspective, very, very successful when it comes to tech entrepreneurship. Now, I'd like to conclude with a few words about, the future. First of all, obviously, I'm very bullish about the Israeli cybersecurity industry. I feel what has been built in Israel is a relative advantage that is very, very hard to maintain and replicate to other places around the world. The experience, the investors, the know-how, the ecosystem that support each other. These are things that are really amazing and we'll keep on building amazing companies. I personally believe that Israel needs to expand to other industries, not only cybersecurity, because in the end of the day, the opportunities in cybersecurity are limited. And if Israel wants to grow its tech ecosystem, it needs to expand to AI, for example, which is something I believe is the next big thing for tech. But obviously, cybersecurity industry will continue to thrive and lead the world. Many people ask me lately, how do you think the current situation will affect the Israeli tech industry, the Israeli cybersecurity industry? Are we going to see a negative effect? Do other countries going to get advantage over us through these times? And I think that actually it's quite the opposite. It's quite the opposite for a few reasons. One, you need to understand that Israeli tech company is relatively resilient or less affected by reserve duty, for example, because a lot of people in the tech industry, this is not an ideal situation, by the way, but it's the reality. But in the tech industry, a lot of the people came from the intelligence corps and not from infantry, for example. And most of the people called out for reserve duty are from combat positions in the army. So first of all, tech industry is relatively less hurt when it comes to reserve duty. Two, our customers and our investors, they're less concerned about it than us. So we're always, stressed, what's going to happen now, investors won't want to invest us anymore, customers won't want to buy from us anymore, etc. But this was true like 20 years ago. In 2023, after we went through Intifada and the wars in Lebanon and multiple operations in Gaza, investors learned that, okay, this is the life in Israel. Every few years, we have a war, we have an operation, but somehow Israel gets out of this situation stronger than ever, motivated than ever. So they understand there is like a cycle of, I don't know, military operation of some sort, and then we go out of it and go out of it stronger than ever. So they have this perspective and they have the trust in Israeli entrepreneurs that they will get out of it stronger than ever. And also, I think that, like, Israelis, we have this growth mindset that every time something like that, is challenging us, is trying to take us down, we step up, we lean in, we give the extra, and we're getting out of that even stronger, even more motivated than we were before. We're amazing adapters. We know to adapt to very hard situations. And if we were able to build a world-class, world-leading cybersecurity industry, there is no reason we cannot go through this current situation and get out of it with amazing technologies, amazing companies, amazing innovation that would be a lighthouse to everyone in the world. And this is why I believe that while the situation is hard and challenging, we'll get from it a lot stronger. And I already see with my team. Right now, my team, if I compare it to before October 7th, is 2x more motivated. And when I see that, it gives me amazing confidence that we're going to build an amazing company, and Israel will continue to thrive and lead the world when it comes to tech and innovation. Thank you very much for listening, and I'd be happy to take questions if you have. Cool. Okay, I see you don't have questions, so thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it. You have a question, Izzy? You're on mute.
Yeah, I have a question about the situation today.
Yeah.
I just ran a program, How to Be Effective on Social Media. Thousands of people saw the post about it. 10 friends of mine showed up because they knew they had to show up. It seems that people are scared to go on social media, and social media, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, YouTube, is the breeding ground for anti-Israel sentiment and anti-Semitism. And I just want, to me, there's this disconnect. People want to do for Israel. People told me it's a great program. I thought I'd have too many people. There's this disconnect between I really want to do for Israel, and I won't go on social media, because when you go on social media, it's not about responding to the person who's the anti-Semite. It's about responding to the person who's the anti-Semite so his followers or her followers can be educated. And if we seed Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram and YouTube, we're just going to have more and more people who become anti-Israel because our voices are not being heard. So I was wondering if you could, as a tech person.
Yeah, no, for sure. First of all, I can tell you that one of the failures that I think will be investigate after we're over with the situation is like the failure of explaining to the world our story, okay, as a state over the years. So we came to this war in a position where most of the world is not pro-Israel, okay, and if there weren't such insane atrocities, we would have even a lot less support. So we obviously are not investing enough in PR, in telling our stories, in making sure people understand, and relate to our narrative. I can tell that since October 7th happened, there is a lot of people in Israel, a lot of them, that putting a lot of efforts in, explaining the situation, explaining our side. There are even like technological tools to support it. Like there is a website, it's called Words of Iron, where you can automatically with one click of a button support an Israel narrative. Okay, so there's a lot of efforts, being done in this front, but obviously not enough. I will tell you, however, I don't think that our effort should be responding to anti-Semites. It creates one backfire that is not always worth it. And two, when you respond to the other side, you also promote it. So social media works in a way that if you reply to an anti-Semite, or if you, I don't know, share his post, then it's getting promoted.
I'm not saying share his post, God forbid.
No, even
right, but the only way, I'm not responding to the anti-Semite. And by the way, sometimes it's not anti-Semite. Sometimes it's a person who just has been given a lot of misinformation, right? I'm responding so that the people who follow this person can be educated. Because without that, then I have a chance that a person might start to think. But if I'm I thoroughly disagree that we shouldn't respond, because education is a one-on-one phenomenon. Everyone has just saying I stand for Israel, it doesn't explain Israel. It doesn't explain my personal story going to a shoe store and seeing Hasidim, American girls in miniskirts, and Palestinians and Arabs all together, right? That's something which only I can say because I saw it. And it's not, and it's really up to each individual. It's not organizational. It's more motivating.
But the way to go is not to respond, but build your own narrative and promote it over time, and gain also audience to your content over time. So when we'll get to the next war, we'll have followers, we'll have people with historical context like we have, and this is the way to go. So usually when you respond, one, it promotes the anti-Semite content, and when you comment, you also promote the main post. Okay, not everyone sees your comment, but it's being promoted. And two, usually it creates a backfire. So people are responding to you and get angry because you go against them. So right now, maybe it's the only thing we can do. But in the long run, we need to build, our thought leadership. We need to build our narrative, and we need to promote it consistently over time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Cool. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.